So I have actually been a therapist for over 10 years, and I started off as just a holistic therapist. I trained at Canterbury College, as a Swedish massage, then an aromatherapy and reflexology. And my route to where I am now with Chinese medicine was actually through Reiki. And this kept on coming up. One of my tutors at this college was very much into shiatsu, and was constantly mentioning Chinese medicine. So my roots kind of come from that, and as a whole, Chinese medicine is very holistic. So when I'm talking about some things today, some of the conditions we see as labels, it's not just one diagnosis. So although I'm going to be talking about some particular diagnoses for a few conditions, there are others as well. So if you have any questions related to that later, then do ask, because Chinese medicine can be confusing. It can also be sound contradictory, but it's not. So if anything is a little bit unclear, do let me know, and I'll try my best to describe it, because some of this can get technical, and I don't want to get too technical with everyone. So if I do go too far, do let me know, and I'll rein it back a little bit. So I'm going to start off by pressing this button. Let's see whether I can do this. I'm not very good with Zoom. Right, so it's that one there. Hold Shift. Oh yeah, share. Hooray! What's that? Great. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure what was going on there. So can everyone see it? Yep, great. So yes, Chinese medicine and spring. So I'm a licensed Chinese medicine acupuncturist. There is a different types of acupuncture, and Twin R massage therapist. Twin R follows the same principles as acupuncture, and is one of the branches of Chinese medicine. So occasionally I might be talking about things related to that as well. And when we move on to acupressure, it's going to be a Twin R technique or two there. So you're going to learn a little bit about how to apply acupressure and how to find some points. I've chosen some of the easiest ones to find, and I've got diagrams, and also I've created a PDF file of this, so you'll be able to reference this afterwards and use it. So let's go to the first official slide. So the image here is really showing the movement of the wood element. The wood element is the element for spring, and as you can see, the chi is actually moving outwards and upwards, and and the wood and plants, that is the direction that they come out of the earth, and they move upwards. And there should also be a little bit of nice movement there. They don't want to be too taut. And what the liver and the gallbladder does is it actually allows free movement of chi, blood and fluids throughout the body. That is their role, which makes sense for them being the wood elements. And occasionally I am actually going to reference back to this image here. You can see. You can even see in the center of the chest there is a nice Chinese character for wood, which has also got that nice uplifting movement. And right now, that's what our bodies want to do. We want to be moving, we want to be free. And you can see that by looking at nature as well. Nature really reflects what's happening with Chinese medicine, which is why this is such a good model for us. When you look at the buds, you look at the fact that there's new early spring flowers that have emerged, and also the bees are out as well, the solitary bees and the bumblebees. They are there. I have an allotment, and I can kind of see signs of everything bursting. The chives have just come up. It's really very, very nice. And it really makes me want to be moving. So, and you'll find that, that the movement is forward. Now, one of the things with each of the organs is they have one sensory orifice which is related to each of them. The one for the wood element is the eyes, and with the eyes we are looking forward. That is really the theme, is about moving forward. And if we move to the next slide, hopefully that's clear. Hopefully we can all see that. I've chosen the different colours there related to each.
Sorry, James, sorry to interrupt you. Is it possible to make it a little bit bigger? I think if you...
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't know that I can do that.
I think if you go to the view thing, maybe when you go on the left...
Oh, yeah, if I press that, that might do it. No?
No, I think if you go, yeah, on the left of your screen, you go to the view thing, maybe there.
Oh, slide only.
I think maybe that one, yeah, and then you can zoom it maybe.
I think if you press play slideshow.
Oh, thank you.
The whole screen
well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Teamwork, well done.
Like I said, I'm not very good with this.
Fabulous. That's much
so, yeah, thanks for your help. So yeah, this makes this a lot clearer. Can you, so with this, you can see the green being the colour for the wood elements. Now, all of these, you can see going in a nice cycle here. Now, with Chinese medicine, we're always referring to yin and yang and the 5 elements. Element is not really a very good translation. Phase is a better translation. And even the Greeks use the word phase more so than element, because when it comes to yin and yang, all it's doing is transforming, and you're moving. Everything is always moving forward. And when you look at the water element being winter, this is when yin is at its height, it's at its strongest, and yang is emerging from yin. So at the moment, we're in the earliest of yin stages, and as it moves further in, we get to the fire elements, which is the most yang. It's kind of emerging. It's emerging, and it's also polar opposites to the water elements. I've got these all these different arrows. The only ones I'm mostly going to refer to are the ones on the outside, and you can see it as they transform. So when it comes to all this advice, it's setting you up not just for now and spring. It's setting you up for summer. It's getting you prepared for summer, and it's also letting go of winter. When I start talking about this advice, especially the dietary advice, it's going to make a bit more sense. You'll see that the foods are going to be a little bit cooling. I'll explain this a little bit more. Does that all make sense? And does anyone have any questions before I move on to the next slide? No, that's all good. Great. Let's see how I get to the next one. Enter, or no, that way. Great. So actually a bit of it is chopped off. I just need to be able to see whether I can move this a little bit so I can read it in full, or I'll give you the essence of it. My cursor. I think I'm just going to give you the essence. So, so on the physical level, it is good to have exercise. We need to wear loose clothing. This is to allow more movements. The loose clothing is for more movement. We've just come from dormancy, and we need to be able to be free moving. So we need to be able to stretch, be loose, and have exercise. And this is to stretch the tendons and the muscles. The tendons are actually directly related to the wood element. And if you look at your own tendons, if you look at your, for example, your hands, is known as sinews, really sinewy on my hands there, particularly my thumb. I've got this all around my body. Sinew, that's a sign that I am a little bit of the wood elements. So what happens during the winter is that these sinews and muscles, they freeze, and that stops free movements. One of the mistakes that people make when they have an injury of some kind is they apply ice. In Chinese medicine, that is a no-no, because ice will actually contract the muscle and contract the tendon. So the usual thing is actually to apply heat. But in this case, we need to be stretching. And the emotions related to this, you need to be calm. That's what equanimity means. It's all about being calm. And with a spring, it's obviously, I've mentioned, it's related to the liver and the indulgence. And when it says indulgence, it means excess of, so too much. Anger is okay. It's when there's too much or when it's repressed. So if you're angry about something, you know, sometimes it's quite legitimate. You need to get angry, get that out of your system. But if you are constantly angry or constantly irritable or stressed, that's when it could become pathological. Or if you're holding it in and it becomes pent up, that goes against our natural flow. Anger can actually be positive and help us move forward with something. Often progress is made through anger, or it makes us kind of get on with something. I can't go on like this anymore, and you want to move forward. So yeah, there's frustration. These are things that are going to come up a little bit later. So it mentions excess emotion injuring the liver. Doesn't always mean the liver literally. It means the liver organ on an energetic level, stopping the free flow of qi and blood and everything like that. Does that all make sense? Hopefully I've made that clear. Great, fantastic. So a lot of you actually do these things already. Oh, will you let me move on to the next thing? Oh, here we go. So meditation, yoga, Pilates, Qigong, Tai Chi. These are all things that can help. So if you are doing any of these things, great, fantastic. If you are finding that you do have tendons and muscles that are actually quite tight, or you're feeling quite tight or pent up inside, or you need calming, or there's any anxiety there, these are fantastic. 4 of these are actually moving meditations. That's actually Tai Chi and Qigong are fantastic moving meditations. And what Qigong means, it means cultivating Qi. So not only are you moving and you're meditating, you're also bringing that Qi inside and directing it, often to an area just below the navel called the Dantian, warming that area up and bringing that Qi in. These are things that help bring us forward. I had, when I was trying to move into this clinic, I moved clinics around Christmas time, and I had issues in January with trying to get this place open, and then I had problems with the internet not working, which meant I couldn't use a card machine, and I could feel this sort of pent up emotion really, really building up. And the thing that sorted it out was actually doing some Qigong. It really, really helped. It let me, it really, really let everything go. Because the thing is with self-care, you've got to be so aware of yourself, because clients pick up on this as well. And we need to be really kind of checking in on ourselves. And right now, with lockdown, all these pent-up emotions become heightened because we're stuck inside. We're not doing the things we normally do. Everywhere is shut, although this is going to be changing very soon. So this is not just relevant to spring. I really, this is relevant to any time of the year, but lockdown, this is really, really noticeable. I noticed last year when during the first lockdown, I wasn't working like all of you right now, and I really was affected. We got to spring, it was March, then the wind came. Wind is also related to the wind element. I couldn't go outside because it was cold, and I'm naturally cold and I really feel it. So I couldn't do all the things I would normally do. So I had to be really, really aware. And luckily I have the allotment. That was the one thing I was able to do. So I was going out into nature and kind of being proactive with what I can do. So what I do with my clients is I try and work out what they need. What do they need, and try and individualize it. And if I see that that it is related to the wood element, these are some of the things that I suggest, and try and work out what's best for them. Because sometimes if you offer something like meditation, then some people can't actually sit still. So that's when I might think about perhaps yoga or Pilates, Qigong, or Tai Chi. That's generally kind of becomes like a negotiation with what is best for them, because then it's kind of like empowering them to then move forward and be able to do what they need to do. And that's one of the things I do. I kind of work it out, and I do that through diagnosis. If they come up, and we're going to be getting to some diagnoses very soon. You're going to learn a little bit of Chinese medicine. I've got 2 separate diagnoses on here. Right, let's go to the next one. So this is an example of 2 different channels. In Chinese medicine, we often refer to the primary channel, and this is the black line you can see. This is actually the bladder channel, just on the back. This is the longest channel, which starts from the inside of the eye and goes right down the back and to the little toe, just at the corner of the fingernail, the toenail. So it's really, really long. And this is actually, even though it's not wood element, the liver is most related to the sinews. This is actually the channel, which is the first layer of defense, and also has a relationship with the sinews. And I've also included these blue lines on here as well. This is one of the sinew channels. This is a separate channel system, which is often used for musculoskeletal pain. I use this a lot with acupuncture and Tui Na. And you can see how it moves off. It binds, it moves around. It is of the wood element. They often, these channels, they overlap and entwine, and that's where things can happen. This time, in fact, any change of season, there's winds coming, and we often have issues, all of us, particularly most of us, I think, live by the sea, when it's actually worse by the sea because there's more wind, and we get very vulnerable. And this is the channel which it often hits first, and around the nape of the neck. So my suggestion is to wear a scarf or a buff or something like that, just to protect you if you're out. If you do have a tendency to do any gardening like me, also have protection below on the bottom of the back. So I wear something called a haramaki, which is Japanese for belly wrap. But what I've done is I found an old shirt, cut it from just around here, and I've worn it, and I wear it around the bottom part of my waist, and that protects me. This is quite important. You still need to be free flowing, but you still need to protect yourself. This is the first port of call for getting coughs, colds, and flu, and anything like that. I could include COVID with that as well. It comes in. The thing is with COVID, it actually bypasses the first couple of levels. Now I'm getting a bit technical, so I'll move on. So that's an example of the channel, one of the channel sinews. It's got a few other names. We're going to come across one of those, I think, in the next slide. Yes, you can actually see that. So with the arrival of spring, the weather warms the earth and begins to sprout and put forth green leaves. So the colour of spring is green. So I've already mentioned this already, it's green. And I mean, for me, I have a pagan background. That's kind of where I came from. And I immediately had a direct association with some of these elements. And green for me is very, very clear. It's obviously, hopefully it's clear. So since the fruits of the tree is immature, it's sour. Now, if you ever eat any young fruit before it's ripened, it does taste sour. So that's where that's come from. But the flavour related to the wood element is actually the sour flavour, which is quite interesting. But that's where it originates. So it's the sour taste. It strengthens the liver, and it can also nourish the tendons and the tendomuscular channels, which is another name for the channel sinews. The name directly translates, it's jin, translates as tendomuscular, and that's what it says in a lot of the books. So that's where that comes from. And I work with that every single day. It's one of those things which I find so fascinating. So does anyone have any questions before I move on to the next slide? No? Fantastic. Let's move on. So this is the dietary advice. Again, I'm sorry, some of it is cut off, but I know roughly what it says. So lemon and lime and lemongrass. So with citrus fruits, you get they kind of get divided up. So not all citrus fruits. So oranges go into a different category, but lemon and lime are sour flavour, so they go under this category. Lemongrass is obviously sour. Cider vinegar, green tea. Green tea is fantastic. It is a stimulant because it's got caffeine in it, but it's also cooling. One of the themes you'll find with most of these listed, they are all cool in nature. So yeah, sauerkraut, apricots, blackberries, gooseberries, olives. Olives is actually a mixture. It's also salty, so salty comes under kidneys. Peaches, tomatoes. Tomatoes is also a mixture. That also, in fact, more so, I'd say, comes under the fire elements and heart, because it actually cools the heart. So why are they cooling, which is yin, and we are in spring, which is yang? That's a question which is often asked. So the reason for this is because it's all about balance. So we have just come from winter. We've just been eating hot foods because it's cold. And so we need to get rid of some of that internal heat. So the best thing to do is to turn to some of those nice cooling foods, just to try and help rebalance our bodies. Now, with some people, me included, this is not always appropriate. I have a yang deficiency. My hands are cold. If I do this, I don't know how big the screen is for you, but I have cold hands and I have poor circulation. I have cold feet. My arms get cold easily. I'm cold below my belly button, so I am cold. I will still follow this, but I have to be very careful so I don't go too far. So this isn't something necessarily you'll have each day, but it's something to start including in your diet. Do you have a question? Hi.
Yes. Hiya, yes, just a quick question about that, because I'm a little bit like you. So in that case, would you just introduce a little bit and carry on maybe eating like warmer foods like winter, I'm assuming, whatever it is?
So the thing to do is with winter foods, it's often quite stodgy and heavy. So that's something you can take out, but include something still warming like ginger. So in the morning, I have hot cooked foods in every single meal as much as I can. Sometimes I have to have a sandwich and I can't avoid it, but I have a hot drink with it or afterwards. So what I do is I have porridge in the morning and I put ground ginger powder, because the powder is more warming than the roots, the fresh roots. The root is not hot enough for me for it to make a difference. And it's actually, that's good for the throat. So if you have phlegm in the throat and you need a little bit of warming, then the ginger root is okay. So for me, I go more for the powder. Now I've found that one of the other things is cinnamon, which is great, but for me it's too much. So I have to have it sparingly. I find that if I have too much cinnamon, I go the other way. I end up with heat elsewhere. It goes to my stomach. and then there's other, it can create other symptoms. So everything is all about balance. So I'd mostly just have ginger. In fact, I've been recommending it so much to people at the local grocers. I went there today to top up and they'd run out. I had to go somewhere else. So I've been recommending it to everyone. And then with that, with the porridge, I've been putting some sour fruits in there. So I've been putting raspberries. So I've kind of trying to balance it out a little bit, just to get something there. But the thing is when it comes to excess, I'll talk about balance. Too much of this can also have an adverse effect as well. So some of these foods will allow your bowels to work a little bit better than normal, if you like. And with that, you'll end up with losing fluids because you get diarrhea. And if you lose fluids, it affects the fluids in the body allow to feed the tendons and moisten. They really have a really good effect. So what can happen is there'll be a problem with fluids in the body, and then it can actually do the reverse to the action. So you have to be careful about how much you have. So for me, I'll have to make sure I have the ginger, just to make sure that my digestive system is doing the job. The ginger is very much spleen related, which is the spleen and stomach are the central to the creation of everything in the body, and it's the earth element. So everything kind of works around it. So I have to make sure that that's working well. And actually, some of the other things I've listed on here are more for the spleen, because if the liver is overacting, the liver is each organ has a purpose related to different aspects of governing a country. It's something that comes from Chinese culture. So the heart is the emperor, and with the liver, it's the I was trying to think. It's the commander of an army. I'm trying to think of the actual word. I can't think of it right now. And unfortunately, that's it. It's the general, and the general is also a bully. And if any organ is weak, and it's often a spleen, it will overact. So if it overacts, you can end up with IBS. What can happen is if the spleen is not strong enough, the liver overacts, and if you're stressed, if you're angry, or any of those things, it affects your digestion. So I've included some root vegetables, particularly for that, because the root vegetables are all sweet, and they are really good for tonifying the spleen. So carrots, parsnips, and beetroot. Thing is with beetroot, that's also does. If you have too much, it can create diarrhea as well, because it's moist. So you've got to be careful with that. But it's also a very, very good tonifier. It also tonifies blood. But yeah, that's why those are there. So I'm going to go back up to the young shoots. Young shoots, very much. I've just had a stir fry with some of these things listed. Young shoots are very much of the wood element, because they are rising. They are mostly green in colour, and they are plants in their very early stage. So they are very young. They're still kind of growing. So I ate some pea shoots today. I couldn't find any bean sprouts, but they would have gone in today's stir fry today. They are very cool in actually bean sprouts. Pak choy. Pak choy will be available in shops. But if you're growing them, they actually won't be ready until later in spring, but they're still spring related. The broths are more winter. You need to cut down on broths, but you can have the lighter broths, like these ramen bowls, where it's if you do eat meat, it's fantastic to have the bone broth, and you can kind of lighten it and have mostly the broth and less of the meat, but so you're still containing the essence to try and help nourish blood and also help with yin, because yin is water and fluids, and you need that for the tendons. So watery foods and less dry foods. So no biscuits, no crisps, no overcooked, dried meats or foods of any kind, because they absorb everything, and then that will have a knock-on effect. So I've mentioned blood deficiency. I don't know whether I'll go too much into that. There is such thing as liver blood deficiency. I will explain it briefly, just to explain why I'm saying no, sort of avoiding garlic. So if you are very deficient in something, you don't want to be eating anything which is too moving. And garlic is very, very moving in nature. It thins blood, and it also moves it as well, naturally. And blood deficiency, that's if you're having trouble falling asleep. This liver blood deficiency, you'll have dry eyes, brittle nails, maybe you're sleeping light, you might have some anxiety. These are general things. If you're experiencing any of those, stick to everything above. Try and cut down on the pungent food, so onions, garlic. One of the suggestions I often see in books, and I agree with this, is to eat those foods, because those foods do actually help with this time of the year, especially if you are prone to colds, etc., because it actually moves it. By moving the blood, it's actually extracting it out of the body. But if you are weak, it's actually not going to help you at all. So that's why I've got that in there. Does that make sense? I don't know. Okay, that's good. Right, so this is, I've just mentioned an extra Chinese medicine diagnosis. So this is liver qi stagnation. So as I was explaining earlier, we need to move forward. It's all about moving forward. But what if you're having trouble moving forward? And I mean, I experience this because I can get a little bit woody sometimes. It's just one of those things. My name is Woodward as well, so don't know whether there's a coincidence there. You might feel agitated. So with liver qi stagnation, this is when the qi is not moving; it's stagnated. And if there's nothing moving, then that's when it can get pathological. And with it being a pathology, and this is on a physical and an emotional, mental level, you'll get agitated, and often easily agitated. I see this in my clinic. I had this with someone last week, and that was quite interesting. I diagnostically, how they were talking to me, they were getting very, very frustrated during the treatment. So I chose a particular point, which we're going to talk about later. And then I saw her on Saturday, and she was nice and relaxed, like a completely different person. It was fantastic. So yeah, anger, outbursts of anger. This is something which I think has been very, very common during lockdown, where we've been stuck inside, not been able to move at all. And then it kind of, we get agitated by each other. And then it can be kind of like a group kind of agitation, which is natural, completely understandable. This is true to our nature. We are naturally wanting to move. It's completely natural. But if it goes against the norm, then this is when this can happen. Pain in the flanks. This doesn't happen often, but it is associated. So the flanks are right here. It's often written in the text, but it's actually clinically, I've only seen it a few times, but it is something related to liver qi stagnation. If a condition gets worse with any of these emotions, so if you get a headache that gets worse with anger or frustration, then there's a good chance there's liver qi stagnation. If a digestion gets worse with anger, then it's liver qi stagnation. If your pain gets worse with anger or stress, then it's liver qi stagnation. And the next thing is PMT. If you get irritable during your PMT, then there's a good chance that it's liver qi stagnation. That can often come with breast tenderness as well, and pain, particular pain as well. which is often signs of liver qi stagnation. And then it will obviously go, but the pathology is still there. That's why if you go to an acupuncturist, they ask you questions about your menstrual cycle. It's really, really useful to find out what's happening. Even if you haven't got a menstrual cycle anymore, it still helps. Yeah, trying to move forward, but you can't. I've mentioned that already. Tight shoulders, we hold it here. I'm going to show a technique of how to release that yourself, so as a self-treatment a little bit later. And it comes up an awful lot. This is actually a gallbladder point. Which is the yang. It's the yang pair to the liver. It's gallbladder 21. If you find you've got tight shoulders, or someone comes in with tight shoulders, then there is a chance. Ask them questions like what's listed here, and then you'll think, okay, what do I do with that? And you might have your own way within whatever practice you do to deal with that. If it's massage, you can massage this area and then focus downwards. You want to go down, because that will help with the free flow. So, does anyone have any questions? No. Great.
Sorry, I have one.
Okay.
Sorry. I don't know if you saw my hand. The liver qi stagnation also reminds me of menopause.
Yes, it can come with menopause. Yeah. So, but with menopause, it's often actually some different organs involved.
Yeah,
So
a lot of heat.
So
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry. Yes, with menopause, there's a lot of heat.
Yes. So with the heat, what that is often fire and water interaction. So as we get older, we become less yang and more yin, but that turns into more of a deficiency. And the interaction between the heart and the kidney, as there becomes a yin deficiency, there appears to be more yang. So there's heat that comes in with menopause, and what happens is the heat will rise up, and as it rises up, and this can that becomes like a hot flush or night sweats, and it interacts with so that's with the kidney, which is down, interacts with the heart, and that can lead to palpitations and anxiety as well. And that's actually something I see a lot of patients for.
Kidney qi stagnation too.
Not kidney qi stagnation, no. It's a yin deficiency. It's not always, but it's often a yin deficiency of the heart and the kidneys. But it's not always that. There is sometimes a bit of liver qi stagnation there. Sometimes it can actually be from kidney yang deficiency, and then because there's a deficiency of yang, the yang then floats up. So I end up using heat below navel, lots and lots of heat. So I use something called moxa, and moxa I burn. Sometimes I use a heat lamp, and that then the heat starts to go back down to where the heat is, just below the navel, to try and draw that heat down. That's often what I do, and all I'm doing is I'm regulating it. So I start off by seeing someone for a number of weeks until I've got it to a certain level, and then I make it less often. So eventually they'll only see me once a month, and then once every 5 weeks, and once every 6 weeks. So they don't have to take any medication necessarily. That's what I do. But yeah, no, there is heat involved. In fact, yes, because the drawing here, I've got the red. That's more for anger, actually. So the anger is is the emotion that comes with the liver, excess anger.
My mother used to say, "Don't upset your liver."
Oh, interesting, yeah. I watched a film quite a few years ago, and it was on it was about Genghis Khan, and Genghis Khan had lost I don't know, maybe it was his mother or someone in the film. It was a long time ago since I watched it, and he got angry, and he said, "I got really angry, and then my liver ached," and it really stuck with me. This is years ago. I watched that. I was like, "What does it mean by that?" And he was referring directly to liver qi stagnation and anger. It says in the Chinese medical text, it damages the liver, but not literally. It won't end up with a literally a damaged liver. It's more the energetics of the liver. But that's a really good question, and really well observed actually with heat, because when I get to the next bit, heat can actually, or yin deficiency can actually be a cause of the next one, and also liver qi stagnation could be a cause of the next one as well, and often they interact, so you're actually not far off. So a lot of this is quite logical, which is one of the things I like about it.
Can I ask you another question?
Is
that all right, Yolanda? Yeah, okay, thank you. Are there any contraindications for gallbladder 21?
Yes, good question. The only contraindication is pregnancy.
As we all ladies here, I just thought.
Yeah, it's pregnancy, because it's downward moving, and there are, in fact, the other point. Some of the other points I'm going to show you are also contraindicated with pregnancy, because they are very moving, and you don't want to be using anything too moving with a pregnancy, unless, of course, they're having trouble giving birth, and then you can use it to induce. And often you find, this is what I was told in my training, that when the midwife will actually be pushing down on the shoulders to try and help give birth, is quite, I suppose, it's quite a natural thing to do, and it's right on gallbladder 21. And any contraindications I have also included with the images as well. So if there's anything I've missed, it should be on there. But yeah, great questions, by the way. Really good.
Thank you.
Okay, shall I move on, unless anyone else has got any questions? Great. So this is liver yang rising is the name of this, which describes the direction of the qi going upwards. And this is when there's excess. So with Chinese medicine, there's excess deficiency, yin, yang, heat, hot, cold, internal, external. And this is an example of excess. And you can see in the picture, it looks like a headache. And it's because it is a type of headache. This is not the only example of a headache. It's probably one of the most common examples, but it's not the only one that I see in my clinic. And it's liver yang rising. And this can happen most likely when someone has liver qi stagnation. So when they are angry or stressed, any of those things, but that's not the only cause. I'll try and explain one of the other causes, which I see a lot, in fact, possibly a lot more than liver qi stagnation. So you'll end up with dream disturbed sleep, quite vivid dreams. The reason for this is because sometimes the cause can actually be from a blood deficiency, which I'm not going to go into, and it's not exactly the same as anemia. I just want to make that clear, but it is very similar. The blood anchors the soul, and with the soul getting being unanchored by blood deficiency, you get dream disturbance, and the liver has a role with dreams, so they can become quite vivid. I have to say, I get very, very vivid dreams. I always have done. and it says, this is quite funny, when I was writing down my notes in my class, it's kind of pain on one side or on both sides. So really, the headache can be on one or both. So, but it's often around here or around here, and also in the eyes, with the eyes relationship with the liver and the gallbladder channel, the yang channel that you get paired with the liver, actually runs along here. It zigzags everywhere, and it goes right into here and round here, and then down the sides. It goes down to the second toe in from the little toe. It's another quite long channel, and it intertwines with the actually all the other channels actually, but mostly the bladder channel. So yeah, it's very much here, and it normally is in the gallbladder channel. I find myself even massaging around this area, including the scalp, and then onto the frontal part, the forehead around here, and then the temples, because all of that is the gallbladder channel, which is where a lot of people do get their headaches. It's most common, but not the only type. I include migraines in there as well, which is usually just on one side. Sometimes it can flip from one side to the other, or it can be on both, but it's usually just on one side. Prone to outbursts of anger, which I've already explained. So the other way that someone can get this kind of migraine or headache, it's actually coming from the back. And I was talking about an invasion of wind cold earlier when I was talking about the channel sinews and that image coming from the nape of the neck. And what it can do is it can pull and contract right to the occiput. Hopefully you can see just around here. This point here is also a gallbladder point, and it can tighten and pull right back over here. So if you do massage and you find someone with a headache, often it's around here and down to the nape of the neck. If they say that it is pulling or it's tight, then that's the area to go for. You need to look all around here, and that's caused the headache. I find that more common than the cause of liver qi stagnation. Sometimes it can actually be combined, but that's what I find. Just because I live by the sea, and because of all that wind and that cold air that comes in, it's so common. Even when people try hard, just because it can catch this area just on the base of the skull. So what I have to do, because I'm prone to getting a stiff neck, I have to wear two buffs. So I've got one thin one and another one, just in case one goes down. So I have to be really careful. Today's a day where I don't have to, actually, which is quite nice. But that's what I generally do. And if you press the area, it can be really uncomfortable. And I have found that really, it's so common. You'll find that often people do get stress and get headaches due to overwork and use of the eyes as well. And that's often from looking at computer screens all day, surfing the internet, because we're not going outside. Does any of that make any sense? If nothing makes sense, I'm really happy to talk about it. And I can't see everyone's thumbs up, so you can also speak out as well. No, okay. So we're going to move on to some strategy. Liver 3. This is a really commonly used point. This is also, I would say, contraindicated during pregnancy. That's one I don't actually have written there, but it really is. So it does, the main thing on here I'm only going to talk about is liver yang rising, headaches, and also liver qi stagnation. I do have some Western related things written on there, just to help with what that means. When it says pain relief, it just means it helps move the qi. So by moving the qi, it helps with the pain, because whenever there's stagnation, there's pain. So if there's an area where there's no movement, there's more likely to be pain. So it just helps that process. And I've also got PMT. there as well. So if you're premenstrual and you come in, you might get that point. So I'm going to show you how to find it. I'm just going to redirect everything a little bit. So this is to see what happens if I put this on the floor just for a moment and take my shoe off. And if you can't see, let me know. I'll try my hardest. So here's my toes here. I know that's probably. So I'm just going to have to do it like this actually. So from here, you can see the big toe and the next one in. And there's this nice gap here. It's a really nice gap. And what you can do, you've got this bump here, and then you go out there. That will bring you to the right level. This is one of the most commonly used points. Right there. A nice little gap. If it feels tight or it's uncomfortable, there's a chance there might be a problem with liver chi stagnation or something like that. That's right there. Mine's nice and loose actually, which is good. And if for a moment you would want to have a little look and take your shoes and socks off if you desire. So I'm going to show you how to do acupressure, but with one of the other points, because this one's going to be a little bit awkward to show you. But this is one which you can use regularly, or on someone else, or on your partner. Try it out on your partner, or on your kids, or anyone close to you, if they are having any issues with anger, irritability, or the kind of headache that I was describing. It is a really, really good point, but it's very strong. It's a strongly moving point. And you might have to press this more than once in the day. Needling will actually have a stronger effect than acupressure, but when you are pressing, you want to hold it down for about at least 2 minutes, maybe up to 5. And when you do this, you want to actually sort of think about why you're using the point. So use some visualization internally and think about if someone has a headache, try and draw it down, or if someone is feeling irritable and angry, then make sure they don't kick you when you do it, but to press it really gently. I'm going to show you how to press one of the other points, which is also a very nice calming point, which is it still helps with liver chi stagnation, but it's a lot more gentle. That's the one I'm going to show the technique with. So I'll move on to that in a moment. Is everyone okay with that point? Great. I can't see everyone, but I'm going to move on to the next thing. So this is gallbladder 21 that I was talking about earlier. So this is descending, as I was saying. Now, this is something that you can do very, very easily. This is going to be a bit of tween R. Now, tween R is done over a cloth or clothing. It can be very gentle. It can be quite heavy. The action you're going to use with this is like this, and it's going to be a very light strike. But before doing this, just do some movements, just down the arm. I'm going to stand up so you can see this movement here. I'm just doing this, just a little bit, just to get some natural movement. You don't want to go straight into this. I'm just using the whole of my hand and just circling right down on this side of the hand. This is the yang side of the hand, the outside, and this is the inside. So just some nice circles. And when you are ready, we're going to hit this point, which is the halfway mark. In fact, it sits very nicely just here. And you can tap this like this. If it's really, really tight, you can turn your head to one side and drop your arm by your chair and just tap there like that. And it's not a heavy tap either. It's nice and light and loose. I believe that this actually comes from martial arts, this particular technique, but it's really useful. So these really loosen up those shoulders, and you can do the other side if you want. Just doing this very gently. And then there's a bit of a tap on the other side. So I'm just using this part here like this. That's quite nice. Hopefully you feel nice and loose. And actually that also, this point activates the extremities. So sometimes if someone has got problems with circulation, you can kind of start to feel a little bit of a tingling in the fingers if you do this enough. It's a really, really good, very, very strong, again, a strong moving point. You can use this for both stress and headaches as well, because it's all linked with what's happening here. So it's fantastic. You can actually combine it with the liver 3. It's great. And where it says breast pain, this is interesting. Last year, I had someone come in with breast pain and they had a scan and there was nothing there at all. It turned out that it was actually more related to the sinew pulling upwards and creating tightness in the breast. So I needled that. It was tender as well. So I needled that point, and after a few sessions, it reduced right down. So where it says that's the kind of instance where that is really, really good. So yeah, and as far as rotating the neck, the gallbladder, because it's a gallbladder point, it's all about rotating, particularly outward rotations. So it's a really good point if you have problems rotating your shoulders. So it's fantastic. If we're all on computers and working from home, you might get this with a lot of people when you go back to work. This is a really, really good one to use to help people with that. You wouldn't believe how common that is at the moment. So this next one. Now, I heard someone say that they do tapping. This is the first thing we're actually going to do. This is a point. These points are actually pericardium points. The pericardium is the envelope of the heart and is actually in another system. It is actually linked directly with the liver. It's like one long channel. I won't go into too much detail of why and how, but it does have a relationship. And sometimes when the emotions are pent up, there's tightness in the chest, and there could be panic attacks and problems with breathing, all related, emotionally related to breathing. So this point here is actually easier for me as a man to find because it's directly in line with my nipples. But the root of your breasts, and you move on to the sternum, and it's just on a very lower part of the sternum. And what you want to do, I'm just going to move up a little bit so you can see. If you want to locate it first, it's a tap, and you use just the middle finger. And the lighter and slow you tap, the more nourishing it is. Fast and moving is actually going to be quite tiresome and not very calming. And what you want to be doing is calming. So nice and light tapping. I remember before I had exams, when I was training at Canterbury College, we were all doing this, all down the sternum. And I had no idea that it had any relationship with Chinese medicine, but I can tell you it worked. It really did calm me down because I always got stressed before exams. And it's really very, very good. I include this when I'm doing tween arm massage, where I open up the chest and then I move to this area, and I tap all the way down very lightly, just very lightly downward movements. And there are other points along here, and they will all have that effect. And even doing that right now, I expect some of you might be feeling some kind of inner calm. How does that feel, everyone? Is that very nice? Of course, I can't really hear you, but yeah, fantastic. So you can include that with the next thing I'm going to show you. And this is when I'm going to show you how to do some acupressure. So this is pericardium 6. This is really good for someone who is suffering from anxiety, stress, also shortness of breath, and actually things like travel sickness and nausea, any kind of nausea. And this is often emotionally related, actually. Often, if you buy a travel band, it goes over this point, which is just along here. They naturally hit this area, and it helps with travel sickness. So the way to find this point, if I bring my wrist close enough, for me, I actually have a nice line of, just along here, this way. That's actually a vein which runs across. Not everyone has this, but if you do, this is an indicator. This is one of the indicators of the level you need to find. The other one is if you get your fingers, if you get to the crease, if you do this to find the actual wrist crease, and it's just below here, just here, and you've got these two tendons right here. If you do this, if you clench your fist, you'll get these tendons come up. And it's just below, just on there. That's where it is. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to use your thumb like this. I'm doing it this way so you can all see. And you want to use the whole of your thumb and push in at equal, even strength, very slowly and gradually into the point. So you go in like this. You want to be nourishing as well. So go in nice and slowly. And you just hold this here. You'll be holding this for about 2, 3, maybe even 5 minutes. And you'll do this on both sides as well. It is a really good point. If you need it, or if you want to show a client this, it is fantastic. Again, this is a really, really common point to use. If you go for a treatment and you're feeling any anxiety or even stress, you may get this. The reason why someone might use this one instead of liver 3 is what we do in Chinese medicine is we have a look at the pulse and the tongue. And if the pulse is weak, but there are signs of liver qi stagnation, you might go for this one instead of liver 3, because liver 3 will be too strong. This one is a nice, softer version of liver 3. So as you're holding this, we're not going to hold this for the whole 3 minutes. You want to come up really slowly. I'm going to have to bring this to this side here because I want you to watch the skin. Watch the skin on my arm. I'm going really slowly up and it's reaching this sticky point. You hold that for a moment and then you let go. And as you let go, it's that space that allows that movement. This is a common thing you do with acupressure, is you allow space for movement because it's all about regulation and movement of qi within the meridians. So that's what you are enabling that space for, is the space for that movement. You can try it on any of those points, and then you can always let me know later on how you got on, or how someone else got on when you practiced on them. Often what I find is people, when they do the acupressure, they're doing all of this, that's not nourishing at all. It's you're stimulating the point, but it's really very moving. There are techniques that are moving, like this one here. But if you do that on a point like this, it could end up moving the chi too fast, and it could actually have an effect, because the pericardium is over here. It would actually have an effect, and it would kind of lift and flutter, and you don't want that. You want it to be nice and calming. Yeah, so that is actually the last of all the slides I was going to go through, but there is one more. I'm not going to go through these, but I've included a list of most of the related things for the wood elements, with the liver, the gallbladder, anger, the facilitating movement of chi, blood and fluids, and some other things I haven't mentioned. There's so much more to this, and I'm just scratching the surface. But this is kind of, if you are interested, this is starting you off on that journey of Chinese medicine. Yeah, and that's everything. So this is a room for more questions. Yeah.
Hi, James. Just back to what you were talking about with the liver 3 and the pericardium 6.
Yes.
You said sometimes for some people it's too strong to use the liver 3.
Yes.
So what sort of circumstances are you talking about there?
So if sometimes the liver chi could be stagnated due to some kind of deficiency, like they might have issues with their lungs, and the lungs help with the movement of chi around the body. So if you're finding someone's got a weak voice, weak sort of with a cough and dry throat, or they might actually, you might see their face and they are really, really tired because they are not sleeping.
So someone that's really weak in their essence.
Really weak, yeah. They are really weak. Yeah, that's a time when actually it might be too much.
Too much, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So what you want is, you don't want someone feeling absolutely exhausted. You want them to be a little bit more uplifted. But
in a more gentle way.
Yeah, so sometimes you have to go more gentle to try and get to the same area, and then you'll offer some advice, maybe breathing techniques to help manage their stress and anger, or meditation, just something else to try and help them get to that, because they might be rather stressed, and that's why they are not sleeping. So it's kind of addressing why have they got to where they are now?
Yeah.
And it's trying to work out why. And it's, for me, it's like being a detective, and then you kind of go to the roots. So I look at the roots and the branch. The branch actually might be the headaches, but it's working. Why?
Yeah. And getting them to a place where they want to accept why they've got there as well.
Yeah. That's and strategy. Strategy is often the way. You do what you can do in the treatment, and then you help them when you don't see them, and that's when strategy comes, and that's how you can offer advice like pericardium 6 or gallbladder 21. It's just to help them. So I often do it in drips. If I give too much information for a client in one go, they'll just get too overwhelmed, and they will end up feeling like they have failed and they can't do anything. So I give them really small bits of advice. Even the dietary advice I'll give in drips as well.
Yeah.
So I go for the most relevant things first, and then I will maybe add it in. Often it's not what they eat, it's how they eat. So they might be eating while they have a meeting, or at the table there might be some kind of argument or tension while they are eating, and that actually might be causing the problem with their digestive system. And it ends up because everything contracts, and if everything contracts, it's not free flowing, and that's where there could be pathology.
So interesting, isn't it? Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great talk.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much, James. Anybody has any more questions, or shall we go and do some networking, guys? It was really interesting, James. We all love it. Any more questions, guys?
Me, can I ask something, James? Hiya.
Sure. Hi.
James, what about somebody who hasn't got, say, a gallbladder?
Oh, that's a good question. So the energetics of the gallbladder is still there. Interestingly, when that question came up when I was a student doing reflexology, and strangely, any time I pressed the gallbladder point on the foot for reflexology, it always hurt anyone who had it removed. Because there's actually with the gallbladder, as it works with the liver, it can get constrained, often with something called damp combined with heat, and that's often the cause of the gallbladder being removed, because you end up with stones, and that is actually gallbladder damp heat. So you still need to treat the gallbladder energetically to try and drain that. Often you do it. You use points to help with urination to try and get that damp out. So you would still, but the thing with the things we're talking about at the moment, it doesn't relate directly to the gallbladder physically. It's more about the movement of the gallbladder. So yeah, they work together. So the gallbladder is more like a helper to the liver when it comes to the movement, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you very much, James. Thanks.
No problem.
Yes. Oh, lovely. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask everybody if you would like to put your emails here, because James has kindly give me a PDF of the presentation, so I can send it to all of you. If you're interested, please put your details on the chat. Well, what I'm going to do, I know it's a little bit kind of nearly 8:30, but if everybody's happy, we can do a little bit of networking, if that's okay. I'm going to put you in a couple of breakout rooms. Hopefully I'll be able to do it properly. And then we can talk a little bit between ourselves in smaller groups. Okay, so please put all your contact details, and then I'll send you the PDF. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the recording now, and I'm gonna do the breakouts. Thank you so much.